As a part of our improvement, we have focused on at least one outcome or result measure. That's our goal. And in the analyze phase, we discovered key factors in the input and process that impact our results. In the control phase of an improvement project, we must identify those key input, process, and output measures that are related to our project. And it must be monitored on an ongoing basis to ensure that our improvement is sustained. Visual performance management gives us answers to our following questions. What is the standard? How do I know that visually? How do I know if we are meeting the standard or not? If the standard is not met, why are we not meeting it and what do we do about it?
You may be familiar in some way with the concept of visual management. However, there are many different meanings for these words. If you do a quick Google search for visual management, you'll see many different aspects: walls of charts, project management tools, dashboards, etc. The word visual is used in many contexts, even within Lean Six Sigma. Visual management or visual workplace can refer to signs, markings, and labels. In a visual workplace, we've even heard some people describe the word visual as things like hand signals that are used in some finer restaurants.
Visual project management is a way to track the progress of a project. In its simplest terms, it tracks to do, doing, and done, also known as Kanban, as you know by now. There are many more complex and robust methods as well, but this training module is about visual performance management, and that is something different than either of these.
So what do we mean by visual performance management? VPM is focused on managing performance, and because we're talking about a specific improvement project, we're concerned with managing the performance related to our process improvement. In these pictures, we are looking at a VPM example on a shop floor.
Visual means that relative data is graphical, easy to understand at a glance, accessible to everyone in the process, and shared, viewed and analyzed together. Performance means that we are understanding current performance compared to target. So of course, this means that we have to not only track performance, but we have to have an established target and compare our performance to that target, so that we recognize issues as soon as possible and so that we know when to take action.
And management refers to the ongoing mechanism for leadership and work groups to detect and respond to issues. Data and fact-based decisions. This means that there's a regular meeting to collectively review and respond to the data. Whether the users of the data are the production team on a shop floor or a leadership team in the executive offices, the same principles apply. Key data is presented graphically and in a prominent or easily accessible location. The key performance measures are monitored, comparing actual results to targets. The management piece means that we have a mechanism in place to quickly and effectively respond to issues.
So how do we create visual performance management? Well, we start by selecting the process measures. Then we make them visual. Start with one improvement, then continue to build as more and more improvements are implemented. With the right data communicated, shared at the right time, allows the early detection of issues, so that they can be solved while they are small before they become massive issues.
One of the first steps is to select the ongoing measures for the process. Here's where we'll introduce the concept of leading and lagging indicators. We can use our SIPOC to identify the KPIs for our ongoing measures. What output measures best reflect process performance? It might be different than the baseline measure. Where in the input or process should we measure the X's to catch the problems early? Which input or process measures are key to a smooth operation?
A lagging indicator measures past performance or output results. These are measures such as on time, quality, and profitability. In our simple SIPOC for making a paper airplane, this project is focused on increasing the number of airplanes delivered on time. Measuring on-time delivery is a measure of past performance, a lagging indicator.
A leading indicator is a measure from the input or the process that can be used to predict future output results. They're the key causal factors that are correlated to the lagging indicator, in this case, the key factors that affect on-time delivery. For example, here the team may have identified the proportion of late paper deliveries as one leading indicator, meaning that an increase in late paper received is a predictor or a leading indicator of late paper airplanes. And another leading indicator is the amount of time it takes to complete step 3 of the process. If either of these leading indicators starts to increase, we have an early warning sign that if we don't take action, we're likely to run into late deliveries in the output.
So we can also use our process maps to identify where the key leading and lagging indicators are. We can identify the key results measures and the most likely causal factors to impact our results. Using our map, we might look at which steps were changed or where, during our analysis, we found the targets were not being met. The criteria for measurement selection includes usefulness of the data, timeliness, will there be time to take action, accuracy of the data, and the ease of getting the measurement. Can the data be gathered without disrupting the process and people?
The next question is, who will be using the VPM data? Is it the cross-functional managers or leadership? Is it the operators, the shift leaders? Understanding who will be using the data is an important aspect. It's understanding the customer of our VPM so that we can deliver to their specific requirements. We might display and respond to the data differently depending on whether the user is the frontline worker, team leadership, or the executive level.
So at any time that we are talking about collecting data, a data collection plan must be created, and this goes for our ongoing measures as well. In the measure and analyze phase of an improvement project, we might collect measures to analyze, but we may only collect the data one time only. For our VPM, we will be looking for ongoing measures. So our data collection plan has to be more long-term focused, meaning that the collection, display and analysis of the data has to be manageable as well as meaningful.
Our data is only useful if it's shared, and depending on your specific process and team, you may choose a physical display or a digital display of your data. Either way, the key to displaying our data is the inclusion of a target. This seems obvious, but is very common to see charts without any target, which makes it really difficult to assess the relevance of the results. In the manual tracker on the left, the color red indicates that the target was not met. Green indicates that the target was met. And further, there's a dotted line that indicates the point at which an action is required. Using a manual tracker is a very effective way for a team who's physically working together to be intimately involved with the data, and it's a very important communication tool. The chart on the right is an example of a simple bar chart with the target line included.
With physical or manual trackers, a consistent layout and use make the charts easy to understand, read and interpret. They tell the story on their own and do not require explanation. Because of the manual aspect, we have to ensure that the facts and data are current and accurate. The data must be easy to maintain, and in order to share the information, it must be visible and accessible in the location it refers to. We suggest using colors, pictures, or symbols wherever it makes sense. But the standard for Visual Management Board is that red indicates a missed target, green indicates on target, and blue or black means information.
Using software to generate the data has the same basic challenges. For example, timely and accurate data, but there tend to be more options for data display. This is not always a good thing. The key here is to not get too distracted by all the bells and whistles. The purpose is to create a place where the users can collaborate around shared, relevant info that's presented in an easy to understand way.
Great data should do a lot of the speaking for itself, but it's up to you, the owner and presenter of the data, to draw the distinct link between the question or purpose and the analysis. The data component is simple. We must have accurate data to reach correct insights. The visual component enables us to spot trends and patterns in data sets, which are not easily seen in the rows and columns of spreadsheets. The skill is balancing the three. display, analysis, and narration. We've noticed that focusing on a pretty display versus information is a recent trend. Data storytelling is about communicating your insights effectively, giving your data a voice. Facts simply represent data, whereas a story's narrative provides context, which adds to our understanding and drives valuable insights. The whole purpose of our VPM is to share information and drive action.
Selecting and displaying the data is just the first part. The important part is what we do with that data. And step one for action is making sure that we have the right people participating in the VPM, individuals who can actually take action, make decisions, or impact the issue at hand. This means inviting only those needed. Resist inviting extra people or duplicates. This only serves to duplicate efforts and unnecessarily tie up resources. Also, no spectators. If someone isn't actively engaged, they don't need to be in the meeting. No observers, participants only. The meeting is not a place for participants to be working on something else. If people are distracted with something else, they're not adding value to the discussion. The rule of thumb on size of the team is 5 people is a good number for decision making. 10 is a good number for brainstorming. The key is to be careful and deliberate with the meeting participants.
Visual performance management means that the team gathers around relevant and timely data on a frequent basis, daily or at least weekly, to review the performance and to respond as needed. Typically, most people view meetings as a place where the action occurs. There is generally very little time spent preparing for the meeting, and very few follow-up tasks are assigned. The best meetings are short and highly productive. And to accomplish this, it means that the participants come to the meeting prepared with information so that decisions and actions can be discussed and decided swiftly. This means that the majority of action and work takes place before and after the meeting. This includes the analysis of data. The data owner should be prepared to share the story of the data with the meeting participants, not to analyze it together in the meeting itself.
With visual performance management, the tasks of collecting, analyzing, and responding to data are ongoing. And in this step, the part where we respond, the team can work with a standard agenda that will become very comfortable with. Here's a typical VPM meeting agenda that starts with a quick refresh on the meeting purpose. This is a great practice to start at any meeting to ensure that the participants know what they're there for.
Next is to review the action items from the previous meeting. Owners of the VPM data then present their findings. They present the narration or the story in their data. If there are red items or missed targets, there will be a discussion around the next steps. For example, if production times were over target for the shift, the team might decide to perform a PDCA cycle for that specific problem. If it's an executive meeting and the data shows that we are not on track to meet our sales revenue, the action might be for the sales team to get together to develop a strategy and present back to that executive team. If the data shows that we are on track, targets are achieved, it's a good practice to make sure that we understand how we achieved those targets and to acknowledge the team for a job well done. All of the action items should be assigned with date and the meeting can close. A typical VPM meeting should last no longer than 15 minutes and, if done well, it's a productive and energizing 15 minutes.
The whole point of visual performance management is to prevent issues from occurring, to detect potential problems as early as possible, and to quickly and effectively respond when issues do arise. It's about the team doing real-time problem solving. With good, solid data collected and analyzed, it's time for the users to get together and take action. The real collaboration and work of the team happens in this section, and it occurs in the team meeting. The frequency and duration of the meeting depends on the purpose and users of the VPM. If it's a strategic VPM aimed at executives, the meeting might occur bi-weekly or monthly. But a common VPM where operators on the shop floor are the users will occur daily or even multiple times a day if there are multiple shifts involved.
Now here's an example of a VPM board in a production area. The action items are updated and current and they are shared with everyone. They are easily visible. the manual trackers are posted and the detailed work instructions are in binders below the action board. And for virtual teams, especially using meeting software, we can share action items. This is an example for a meeting app called Blue Jeans. The point is, no matter what your venue, the end result of the meeting is to solidify and share action items. Key points in the process are measured and displayed. There's a process set up for the team to share and respond to the data. So what could go wrong?
Before we begin our VPM meetings, the team must think through a response plan for their meetings. Our VPM response plan template is a place for you to organize this information. The high-level process steps are listed down the left side of the form, and we capture our KPIs that will be included in our VPM in the measure column. For our measures, we identify the name of the measure and then answer a simple yes/no for whether a data collection plan was completed. The next columns are to capture the target for that specific measure and an action level. This indicates the point at which an action is required. In our example here of a manual tracker, black line with green above and red below is the target, and the black arrow is showing the action level, or the point at which action is required. The form also has a space to identify the owner of this measure. This is the person who's accountable for making sure that the data is collected and prepared for the team prior to the VPM meetings.
When we've been monitoring the same KPIs for a while, let's say that a particular measure is green for a long period, that's when it's time to see if there's another indicator to monitor. The purpose of the VPM is to stay on top of those factors that can mess up our process. But once they are predicted and predictable and under control, we can focus on something else. So we don't have to continue monitoring the same measures forever. It's more of a dynamic process with visual performance management. And here we have your 1-point lesson for visual performance management. To create a VPM system for an entire function or department or site is a pretty big undertaking. So when you want to do that, give us a call. In this section, we have covered how to create a VPM that is project focused, which is a smaller scope. With a continual practice of creating VPMs for each improvement project, an organization can steadily build towards a larger scope by keeping consistency in the VPM practices.